Good evening. Adjust your volume to a comfortable level. Also feel free to comment below. Constructive criticism is welcome as it gives us opportunity to adjust for your liking. Anyway, let's get cracking. Tonight, the thrilling sound of people doing their jobs competently. Try to stay awake, or don't. Before sunrise, when roosters still doze and only a thin silver mist hangs across the fields, one sound sometimes stirs first: the hollow sigh of a leather bellows. It comes from a low stone workshop near the crossroads, where a faint orange glow leaks between shutters like a secret the night forgot to keep. This is the village forge, a place of warmth and metal, of sweat and steady rhythm. Also the unofficial office where broken objects file their complaints and emerge chastened. To live in a medieval village is to know this place well. You may be a farmer, a miller, a brewer, a shepherd. All roads lead here when something breaks or must be made, which is to say most days ending in day. The blacksmith, is it merely a tradesman? He is part mechanic, part engineer, part quiet guardian of the community's strength, an artisan who can fix your plough, shoe your horse, and if pressed, your mood. Fire before dawn. The smith wakes before most folk, because iron does not bend politely at luncheon. His cottage, usually attached to the forge itself, smells of smoke and warm bread left by wife or daughter, domestic diplomacy at its finest. Outside, stars fade as he crosses to his hearth. Last night's coals may still hold a whisper of heat. If so, he stirs them with practiced care, like a man convincing an old friend to try once more. If vit, he strikes flint to steel, catching spark on dry moss. Soon the fire takes, feeding on charcoal he has stored all year like treasure he intends to spend wisely. Charcoal is precious. In spring and autumn, woodcutters burn oak and beech in slow, smothered piles to create it, a smoky labour the smith often oversees with the vigilance of a banker watching coin minted. Without charcoal, his fire would burn too cool for iron. He tends the bellows, great leather lungs hinged to a beam, pumping air until the heart of his forge glows white. Sparks leap upward like small fireflies attempting sainthood, and shadows jitter across the timbered walls. The forge smells different from any other place. Sweet, dry charcoal, acrid iron scale, damp leather, a faint tang of oil. To step inside at dawn is to enter another world, half workshop, half cavern of flame, wholly persuasive about the value of staying alert. Tools of the trade. Every tool has its spot. The anvil, massive iron-faced, squats at the centre like an altar to practical miracles. Hammers hang nearby, crosspeen for drawing metal, ballpeen for rounding, straight peen for edging, all eager to contribute opinions. Tongs of every length line the wall, each shaped to grip some particular stock that refuses to be held by mere fingers. Hardy tools fit the anvil's square hole, swages, fullers, cutters, the punctuation marks of metalwork. Beside the fire stand buckets, one of water for quenching, one of oil for slow cooling, and sometimes a tub of sand to catch sparks or temper blades with less drama. The smith knows his tools like friends. Each bears scars of long use, each fits his hand's memory. Apprentices are taught first to clean, and return them in perfect order, for a smith's rhythm falters if he must search when metal is white hot. Iron has a notorious dislike for waiting. As the fire wakes, so does the village. Soon boots scuff on packed earth outside. The first arrival may be a farmer with a ploughshare cracked on a hidden stone, the sort of treachery stones specialise in. He lifts the heavy iron onto a bench with a groan of relief. Next comes a shepherd boy clutching broken shears like a confession. A brewer's servant might appear needing a fresh hoop for cracked barrel ale, being a poor candidate for escape attempts. The smith nods, inspects, and sets each item aside, already deciding which will heat first, a triage of usefulness and soot. Payment varies. Some customers carry coin, but more often they bring eggs, butter, wool, or promise of grain come harvest. The smith keeps mental tallies. He knows which neighbours pay promptly, which struggle, which repay with favours, which bring gossip unasked. In a community where cash is rare, trust is as vital as hammer. Both, notably, are flattened disagreements. Then comes the sound of hooves. Horses are the blacksmith's special pride. Whether great cart beast or small farm pony, each must be shod for work. Shoeing requires patience. The animal snorts, uneasy at sparks and clang, unpersuaded by lectures on civic duty. The smith speaks softly, lifts hoof, trims horn with practised knife. A glowing shoe, fresh from fire, is pressed briefly to shape hoof. Steam hisses, the scent sharp but harmless, and the onlookers wince on principle. Nails are driven quick and sure, clenched tight, and the horse stamps ready for road. Farmers judge a smith by his farriery. A well-shod horse is strength for plough and waggon alike, and a poorly shod one is a letter of complaint with legs. Apprentices and learning. Few men are born smiths. Most begin as apprentices at 12 or 13, when enthusiasm outweighs good sense. They are sent by parents or bound to master by formal agreement. The apprentice lives half servant, half student, stoking fire, working bellows, sweeping floor, fetching water, grinding edges, learning that soot is a lifestyle. Yet he also watches how master reads iron's colour, how he lifts hammer with grace, how each sound tells of heat or hardness like a secret language spoken in sparks. Training lasts years. A boy learns first to strike while master holds heavy sledging in rhythm, sparks flying, confidence negotiated every blow. Next he shapes nails, rivets, small hooks, alphabet of iron. Slowly he learns welding, heating 2 pieces to white, sprinkling sand, striking just so until metal fuses seamless and pride tries not to grin. Only after long practice may he fashion complex items or attempt tempering of blades. When ready, he becomes journeyman free, to travel and work in other forges, seeking mastery and perhaps someday opening his own shop, where he too will explain patiently that hot means do not touch. Guilds, where towns are large enough, protect the craft. They set prices, quality and training standards, and, crucially, opinions about whose iron is inferior. Even in villages without formal guild, smiths share a brotherhood of skill. Strangers passing through may trade tips or borrow coal in need, because fire recognizes kin. The metal's journey. Iron itself arrives by trade and toil. Local ore, dug from shallow pits or bogs, is smelted in simple furnaces called bloomeries. Charcoal feeds the fire until ore yields a spongy bloom of iron that looks nothing like a sword and everything like potential. This crude lump is hammered to drive out slag, then carted to smiths. Some villages buy bars from merchants travelling with pack horses, others smelt their own. A smith learns to judge quality by sound and spark. Good iron rings true and spit bright white sparks when ground. Poor iron spits dull red and sulks. Charcoal too is vital and costly. Woodsmen cut timber in winter, stack and smother it under turf to burn slowly, producing the light hot fuel. Without steady supply, a forge cools, as do tempers, briefly. Thus Smith's ties to woodcutters and merchants are close. He is part of a hidden network that keeps metalwork alive, a supply chain powered by patience, mules, and smoke. Seasons of work. The forge's rhythm follows the farming year, because iron and appetite consult the same calendar. Spring, ploughs and harrows are mended, horses reshod for fresh tillage, scythes sharpened for hay, optimism is filed to an edge. Summer, carts creak under grain. Their wheels and axles need constant care. Hoes, sickles, knives pass through forge for quick fixes. each returning to the field slightly improved and smelling faintly of triumph. Autumn. Tools sharpened for harvest. Cider presses and wine screws repaired. Hunters ask for arrowheads and boar spears, the local boars having no vote. Winter. With fields resting, work turns to domestic and craft. Hearth pokers, hinges, locks, cooking spit, ornate candle holders, and sometimes fine commissions ironwork for church door or weather vane for manor, guaranteed to point north, except when corrected by wind and theology. In cold months, the forge becomes village hearth. People linger by fire's warmth, trading news while Smith works, a social contract sealed in soot. Children watch sparks with awe and are reminded, gently, that awe is best admired from a safe distance. In summer, the doors stand wide, swallows dart in and out, and heat shimmers while sweat runs down Smith's arms. Rain on the roof hisses softly as it cools iron smoke weather and work in amiable argument. More than a tradesman. Because he touches every life, the smith is often trusted advisor. Travellers ask him about road conditions, neighbours pause to share worries while waiting. He may quietly keep tally of who is struggling mending tools on credit when harvest fails, because hunger is a debt nobody wants collected. Some villagers believe forge smoke drives away illness. Horses are led in circle round fire to cure lameness. Sick children pass briefly through doorway to banish evil. The smith may smile, unsure if it works, but tradition is strong, and sometimes the heart needs remedies the hands cannot measure. Festivals depend on him too. For weddings he forges new locks or handsome iron gifts. For fairs he makes bells and spits. For building barns he shapes nails by handful, small thunderbolts tamed to hold timbers true. When church needs new bell frame or weathercock, he is called. In a world without mass production, his skill is the difference between want and plenty, between a door that holds and a winter that wanders in. Stories by the anvil. Every forge gathers stories. Farmers arrive cursing rocks that broke plough. A bride might commission simple iron ring when gold is beyond reach. Love, being practical, approves. Once a travelling knight rides in, armour dented from skirmish. The smith and apprentice spend hours reshaping breastplate with careful blows. And by night the knight offers coin and tale of border wars, both slightly polished. Pilgrims bring news of distant shrines, merchants tell of far cities. Thus a quiet village learns of the wide world through forge gossip, unverified but warmly delivered. Children beg for trinkets. Many a boy treasures first small hook or ring hammered from scrap. Many a girl too, though the scrap does not care who claims it. Some keep old nails as charms. Apprentices from other towns sometimes visit, testing skills and learning local tricks. New ways to hold tongs, old ways to hold one's temper. Over years the forge becomes archive of tiny encounters, each echoing in ring of hammer, a history written in dints. Faith mingles with heat. A small crucifix hangs near anvil, dark with soot, patient with circumstances. The smith might mutter a quick prayer before tempering a blade or striking final weld, not because iron listens, but because he does. On St. Clement's Day, patron of blacksmiths, villagers bring offerings, bread, ale, candles. Sometimes the priest blesses forge itself, sprinkling holy water on anvil and bellows. The bellows, for their part, continue to breathe. Few crafts feel as close to mystery as shaping earth's stone with fire into tools that plough, build, and defend. Alchemy with better accounting. Evening quiet. At day's end, the forge glows softer. The last horse shod, the last hinge filed smooth. Customers gather goods, paying in coin, barter, or promise receipts written on memory and reputation. Children linger, sleepy in warmth, eyes bright at sparks that now look like stars with opinions. Apprentice sweeps floor, banks fire under ash to smoulder until dawn. a small son on furlough. The smith hangs hammers, oils tongs, and steps outside. His body aches, hands rough and blackened, but heart is calm. He has kept the community alive another day, fields ready, carts rolling, doors secure. Above, stars prick a velvet sky. From cottages drift smells of supper and distant song, the village cooling like iron, strong for tomorrow. The forger's place in the world. In chronicles, kings wage war and merchants cross seas, but none of it would stand without countless humble forges that refuse to be dramatic about being essential. Each village depends on one, a quiet anchor of survival. The forge is workshop, news house, healer, and hearth. Its fire links earth to sky, ore to bread, danger to safety, converting inconvenience into utility at a very competitive rate. So when you think of the Middle Ages, think not only of castles or cathedrals, but of this modest place, sparks flying into dusk, hammer ringing steady, a man and his apprentice shaping glowing metal while neighbours wait and talk. It is here, in such small fiery rooms, that the true life of the age was forged. And yes, the pun is obvious, but then so is the truth. Before the sun climbs high and while the fields still lie quiet, another sound joins the waking village, the slow, heavy turning of a water wheel. At first it is only a soft creak and splash, pretending to be modest about moving a building-sized machine. Soon it becomes a steady rhythm, wooden paddles dipping into the mill stream and lifting out with a slap of water. Where the road bends toward the river or a small diverted channel, there stands the mill low and wide, its roof mossy, its walls smelling of grain and damp wood. It is here that the village's harvest becomes bread, and it is here that stories gather like chaff on the floor, which is to say, everywhere. The mill is more than a building. It is an engine that powers the lives of farmers, bakers, brewers, and hungry families who insist on eating daily the scandal. Without it, grain must be crushed by hand with stone querns, a weary, slow business that builds character and blisters in equal measure. With it, a single wheel and a clever arrangement of gears could grind in an hour what would have taken days of back-breaking labour. The miller, keeper of this noisy turning heart, holds a quiet authority in the community, quiet the way a thunderhead is quiet. The day begins with water. Long before the first farmer arrives, the miller steps outside to inspect the mill race channel that brings a portion of the river to his wheel. He walks the banks in dawn light, listening for leaks or blockages. Fallen branches or night-washed debris could choke the flow, and water, unlike people, does not respond to stern looks. If water is low, he adjusts small gates to trap enough for steady turning. A mill without water is a giant at rest, which is poetic for no flower today. Inside, the air smells of damp grain and old wood. Beams are dark with age and flour dust lies on every ledge, determined to become a permanent finish. Rats skitter unseen in corners, though cats keep numbers down and professional pride at. The great water wheel creaks into life as the miller opens sluice gates. Paddles catch current, and slowly the wheel begins to revolve. Its motion travels through the wall to a complicated wooden gear train, a main shaft, cogs, and lantern gears that rise to the millstones above. The stones themselves are enormous, each a flat round of dressed granite, one fixed and one turning, their faces carved with careful grooves that shear and crush the kernels into meal. It is a marriage of stone and water and stubbornness. The grain contributes hope. The miller's first job is to dress the stones if needed. Over weeks of grinding, their patterns wear smooth, dull stones crush poorly. Heating grain and spoiling flour bread prefers not to be pre-cooked. Dressed stones cut clean and cool. The miller kneels with iron pick and slowly chips new furrows, a rhythmic tapping like a woodpecker's song, if the woodpecker had a schedule and a ledger. It is dusty work but essential, and a good miller knows how to keep his stones true and flat, the way a sailor knows his ropes, and a cat knows which laps are gullible. Soon the first customers arrive, sacks slung over shoulders or balanced on carts. Farmers greet the miller with cautious courtesy. His toll for grinding, often a 16th part of the flour, is required by law or custom. Some grumble at the cut, because arithmetic always feels personal, but few dare quarrel openly. The mill is too important, and the lord of the manor usually protects his miller, for the toll is often shared with the estate. Still, the miller must keep trust. If he cheats, taking more than his share or weighing unfairly, the whole village will know by nightfall, and tempers can flare. Nothing travels faster than rumour, except perhaps a wheel allowed to overspin. A young boy may come first, sent by mother with a single small sack for family bread. He waits while miller hoists it out, pours grain slowly into the hopper above the stones. The boy listens, wide-eyed, as the stones begin their deep humming grind. Flour dust drifts like fine snow, coating hair and lashes, giving him premature wisdom in white. The miller chats as he works, asking after family or telling bits of news, an accident on road, a fair coming soon, the birth of a neighbour's child. The boy nods solemnly, absorbing both flour and information. Then come heavier loads, great carts from wealthier farmers, perhaps even from the manor. Horses stamp and blow while men wrestle sacks inside, proving once again that grain is heavier when watched. The mill fills with voices and shifting weight. As the wheel turns and stones rumble, a warm vibration runs through the floor, and the whole room feels alive, powered by the steady rush of water just outside. Conversation settles into the mill's pulse. Even arguments adopt a rhythm, which helps no one but sounds impressive. The work is without danger. Millstones must never run empty. Without grain between them, they strike fire from one another, and could crack sparks, being dramatic, but poor at baking. The water flow must be watched. Sudden surges to spin wheel too fast and shatter gears. Belts and shafts snap. Fingers caught in moving parts are lost in an instant and not found by apologies. Flour dust, so gentle in air, could flare explosively if spark and stillness combine. A wise miller keeps alert and teaches any helper the same careful respect, ideally with all 10 fingers as visual aid. Some mills have an apprentice or son who learns as he labours. He cleans, bags flour, patches sluice gates, oils, gears, and above all listens to the tone of turning stones, the change in hum that means grain has run low, the way the wheels splash shifts if debris catches. A good apprentice becomes an heir, a careless one becomes a cautionary tale by lunchtime. The mill is also a social place. Farmers waiting their turn sit on benches, drink ale or cider brought along, and talk. They exchange gossip about crops, marriages, weather, 3 subjects that explain almost everything. Sometimes they sing to pass time, sometimes arguments spark whose grain was cut first, whose oxes blocked the lane, whose dog has opinions about geese. The miller keeps a cautious ear, quick to pour oil on anger, for fights are bad for business and reputation. Yet he also serves as informal judge at times, helping settle disputes with his authority and neutrality, and when needed, a look that says, gently, the wheel is louder than you. Beyond grain, the mill may turn for other work. Some villagers grind not only wheat, but barley, rye, oats, even beans. In regions with flax or hemp, the wheel may power simple fulling to clean and thicken cloth, or pound bark for tanning leather. A versatile mill is a sign of wealth. Water power could drive hammers, saws, or presses, each with its own way of insisting on maintenance. But always, the heart is flour, daily bread of all, from lord's table to child's crust with honey. The miller's house, usually attached, hums with its own life. His wife may bake bread from toll flour, selling loaves to neighbours whose ovens are shy. Children grow out amid splash and rumble, learning early to avoid gears and respect water's force, 2 excellent life lessons. Cats and dogs wander freely, ducks float where sluice meets pond, conducting obscure but important meetings. In winter, the mill becomes warm refuge. In summer, its damp coolness is relief from heat. Travellers sometimes shelter nearby, drawn by sound and safety and a reasonable chance at a crust. Seasons change the mill's song. In spring, the stream runs fast with meltwater, and wheel turns strong enough to feel smug. Summer can bring drought, slowing work. Miller wakes at night to adjust gates, conserving every drop like a banker with rain. Autumn is busiest, when harvest crowds the yard with carts. Farmers wait long hours, playing dice on sacks while mist rises from river and patience is tested gently. Winter slows as fields sleep, yet mill still runs steady to feed the village. Snow muffles wheels creak, but smoke curls warmly from chimney, and light glows inviting against white banks, a small sun keeping counsel with a small river. Though humble, the miller's position is powerful and sometimes resented. His toll can feel heavy when harvest is poor, and mathematics again takes the blame. Stories of greedy millers who cheat abound in tavern tales, useful fables for evenings when ale is brave. Some lords deliberately keep miller a little feared, to ensure payment. Yet a wise miller tempers power with fairness, lending small grain to hungry neighbour, keeping scales honest, offering kind word. Over years such a man earns deep if quiet respect. Over months, at least fewer curses. Faith too touches the mill. Many a miller keeps a saint's image nailed above door, often St. Arnulf or St. Nicholas, specialists in keeping water reasonable and grain cooperative. On feast days he may scatter first handful of flour as blessing, a simple liturgy of gratitude. Some believe the steady water and turning wheel have protective virtue. Charms hang to guard against fire or flood. When drought lingers, villagers may pray at nearby shrine, asking saints to send rain and set wheel turning again. The saints are not above hydraulics. By late afternoon, the rush slows. Farmers collect flour, lifting lighter sacks now soft and pale. Mill floor lies thick with fine dust. Air glows golden in slanting light, as if the sun were trying baking. The wheel still turns, but slower. Gates are closed bit by bit to rest the stream. Cats curl on warm flour bags, and the miller, face white with powder and dignity, counts his toll portion. He sweeps, oils gears, and listens to the last steady trickle of water, a quiet promise for tomorrow. Evening settles gently. The miller walks the mill race once more, closing sluice to let river reclaim its full course, diplomacy concluded. Frog song begins along banks. From his doorway he watches twilight gather, while wheel drips and stills. The house smells of bread and damp wood. A lamp glows behind small glass. Tomorrow it will all start again. Water harnessed, grain crushed, bread made possible. Miracle by machinery. Repeated daily until people stop calling it a miracle. For travellers, the sight of a mill signals safety. It means crops, bread, steady life. For villagers, its rumble is background music to existence, a sign of prosperity and continuity that hums even when no one is listening. In chronicles of kings and knights, mills rarely earn a line, yet without them, no army marches, no household eats, no brewer ferments ale, and everyone becomes suddenly very interested in cairns men. So if you wander through a medieval countryside, pause where road meets water and listen. Hear the slow creak and splash, smell flour and damp wood. Inside, a man and his helpers labour among gears and grain, turning harvest into sustenance. This is the miller's wheel, unassuming, vital, steady as the river itself, and just as opinionated about stones in the channel. In the heart of many medieval villages there is a house unlike the others. Its yard is stacked with barrels and buckets. Its door stands half open to let out sweet, warm steam doing its best to convert the entire lane into an appetite. The smell drifting across the road is unmistakable. Grain toasting, herbs steeping, something rich and very alive. This is the brewhouse, and the person who keeps its fire is the village brewer, patron saint of thirst, patience, and scalded forearms. Ale is more than a pleasant drink. It is safer than much of the water our compliments to the upstream cattle, a daily nourishment, a quiet medicine, and a comfort at day's end. Children sip weak ale, labourers quench thirst after harvest, travellers find cheer in a mug. Priests bless feasts with stronger brew and, on occasion, look very blessed indeed. Behind this simple drink lies steady work and quiet knowledge, most often kept by women, though in towns men and guilds grow powerful in the trade, arriving late to the party and then insisting they always hosted it. The brewer's day begins early, often before the sun crests the fields. She moves through the cool dawn to her hearth, where last night's embers may still glow like tiny, obedient stars. She stirs them to life or builds a fresh fire, feeding it with dry faggots and oak logs until the big copper kettle can be set to warm. Beside the fire stand sacks of malted barley, sweet with a scent like toasted bread that has decided to be perfume. Malting itself is a small craft, barley-soaked, spread to sprout just enough to unlock sweetness, then dried on a heated floor until golden. Some brewers malt their own grain, raking and turning it for days. Others buy from maltsters who specialize in the work and the cheerful inhalation of hot grain dust. Water is fetched while the fire roars. In villages blessed with clear spring, the brewer may simply draw from the well. In others she hauls buckets from stream or mill race, careful to choose the cleanest source, and even more careful not to slip. Water shapes ale's taste. A wise brewer knows which nearby spring gives soft sweetness, and which one adds a mineral lecture. The first great task is mashing. She fills a large wooden mash tun with malt and hot water, stirring slowly with a long paddle that doubles as scepter. Steam rises. The smell of sweet grain fills the room, heavy and comforting, like breakfast discovering ambition. Temperature matters. Too cool and starch stays locked. Too hot and the grain scolds and sulks. There is no thermometer here, only years of practice, the feel of warm liquid on wrist, the sight of a lazy swirl tightening just so, and the sound of grain thickening like a story that finally gets good. She stirs until every kernel is bathed, then covers the tun to rest. During this hour or more, enzymes quietly turn starch to sugar, while humans briefly pretend they aren't waiting. While mash sweetens, the brewer tends to other chores. Buckets are scrubbed clean, jugs are checked for cracks, barrels are swelled with water so their staves hold tight and do it surprise anyone later. Cats prowl to keep mice from grain, dogs stretch near the hearth with the air of staff on break. Children, if she has them, run errands, splitting wood, gathering herbs, fetching more water, and asking when the sweet wort is ready for just a taste, please. In some homes, the whole household joins the brewing. In others, hired helpers lend strong arms for lifting and hauling, and strong opinions on hops. When the mash has rested enough, the brewer draws off wort, the sweet liquid now hidden in grain, reluctant but persuadable. She lifts a plug at the tun's base, catching the first runnings in pails. More hot water is gently poured over grain to wash out remaining sugar, a careful act known to every experienced hand and to every impatient onlooker, as surely that's enough. The combined wort flows into the great copper kettle. Its colour glows golden brown in firelight, its smell is rich and inviting, and not at all subtle about it. Now comes the boil, the roaring heart of brewing. As the wort rolls and steams, foam rises with a sense of occasion. The brewer skims with quick strokes, then adds her flavourings. In much of early medieval Europe, this means a mix called gruit, an herbal blend that might include bog myrtle, yarrow, rosemary, sweet gale, or mugwort, with a dash of secrecy and a pinch of mind-your-own recipe. Each brewer has her own mixture, often guarded like a treasure map. Herbs bring bitterness, preserve ale from souring, and sometimes lend gentle medicine. In later centuries, hops begin to appear, little green cones from vines, resinous and pleasantly bitter. They keep ale fresh longer, perfect for trade and for relatives who linger. A forward-thinking brewer might pay dearly for a small bag to experiment, knowing hopped ale could last weeks instead of days, practically forever in medieval fides. The kettle boils for an hour or more. The smell escapes into the lane, sweet, bready, laced with herbs or hops, and behaves like the world's most persuasive invitation. Neighbours passing by know at once what day it is. Some pause to chat, leaning in the doorway as if it were a confessional. Children beg for a sip of the warm, sweet liquid. The brewer may offer a taste from the laded, laughing at sticky faces and making a mental note to scrub the floor again. Once boiling is done, the wort must cool. In winter this is easy. Tubs set outside under clean cloth, chill in crisp air while the brewer supervises in a halo of steam. In summer, cooling is trickier. Some brewers sink tubs in shaded stream or pack wet cloth around them and hope the sun is feeling lazy. A patient eye is needed. Pitching yeast into wort too hot will kill it. Too cold and it sleeps like a saint. Fermentation begins when yeast is added. Medieval brewers often rely on wild yeasts lingering in casks or caught from air, the invisible neighbours who always show up when there's sugar. Some keep special starter, a lump of yeast-rich dough or a scoop of frothy ale saved from last brew. As soon as yeast meets sweet wort, bubbles rise and foam blooms. The room fills with faint hiss and smell of baking bread, as if a loaf decided to breathe. The brewer watches closely. Temperature, cleanliness, and timing all shape flavour and strength and reputation, which ferments even faster. Days pass with gentle tending. Each morning she checks the frothing surface, skimming scum, whispering a quick prayer perhaps, insurance being a tithe-honoured tradition. Many believe charms help. A sprig of blessed herbs above cask, a whispered saint's name, a stern look at the cat. A sudden change, silence when there should be foam, sour tang in place of sweetness, can mean disaster. Grain is dear, a spoiled batch is heavy loss. Every brewer knows the dread of lifting lid and finding her work turned to vinegar, which is useful, yes, but not today and not in this quantity. While ale ferments, the brewhouse becomes a small social hub. Neighbours stop by to ask when the next batch will be ready and to ensure the brewer still recognises their mug. A tavern keeper might strike a bargain for 2 fresh barrels and a third he definitely doesn't need, but would hate to see go to waste. Farmers linger to sip older brew and share gossip. Who married, whose cow calved, whether the Lord plans new taxes he does, he is very consistent. Children fetch warm mugs of thin ale for thirsty parents working fields. For some, the brewhouse feels like hearth and inn combined, a place where news is filtered through foam. When fermentation slows and bubbles fade, the brewer transfers ale to clean casks. Barrels are heavy. Helpers roll and tilt them with care and theatrical grunts. Bungholes are stopped with wooden plugs. Each cask may be marked with chalk, or simple symbols to show strength and age. Mild, strong, feast and save for aunt's visit. Some ale will be drunk young and gentle, still slightly sweet. Stronger brews for feast or sale may be left to settle longer in cool tea. The economy of ale is complex. Many brewers sell by jug directly from door. Others supply taverns that supply stories. Payment may be coin, but often is barter. Flour, eggs, meat or labour. In some places the lord or monastery claims a right to brew or tax, because rights are famously thirsty. In towns, brewing guilds enforce quality and protect members. They may appoint ale tasters, officials who visit to judge taste, strength and honesty of measure. A failed test to bring fines or ruin reputation, so care and cleanliness matter deeply, as does not arguing with the ale taster when he is holding your future in a very small cup. Work is constant and physical. Stirring mash is heavy lifting. Scalding kettles risks burns. Hauling casks strains back and shoulders and friendships. Yet many brewers manage while tending children and house. Brewing fits into the rhythm of domestic life, a fire kept hot while meals cook, a batch fermenting as laundry dries, barrels tapped while guests arrive, and someone remembering the herbs just as the cat remembers the cream. There is also seasonal rhythm. Winter favours strong, dark ales that keep well and warm bellies and opinions. Spring may bring lighter brews with fresh herbs that brag about surviving winter. In summer heat, brewing is harder, cooling is tricky, spoilage more common, tempers short. Autumn after harvest is busy, when grain is plentiful and families brew to last through cold months. Festivals and saints' days dot the year, each calling for special batches. Spiced ale for Christmas, honeyed brew for weddings, strong drink for harvest home, the liturgical calendar of thirst. Faith mingles with the craft. Some brewers dedicate first pour to saints, often St. Arnold, St. Bridget or St. Nicholas, experts in matters of grain, hospitality, and getting home safely after both. Charms and prayers are common. A cross scratched on mash tun, holy water sprinkled on first cask, a whispered promise to patient this tice. Brewing feels like alchemy, invisible forces turning sweet grain to living drink. In a world of mysteries, a bubbling vat seems proof that unseen life thrives and blesses, and occasionally overflows. Stories gather here too. A traveller once arrived near dusk, weary and cold. The brewer gave him warm mug and bed by hearth, and later learned he was a wandering minstrel who repaid her with songs and a bill for none of them. Another aimed a whole batch soured after a thunderstorm. Folk said lightning angered the spirits. The brewer rebuilt hearth and started anew, and diplomatically avoided blaming the cat. Once, a feast nearly failed when a noble wedding drained every cask. Neighbours rallied, sharing ale so no guest went dry. These small tales echo long after, retold whenever mugs are raised and memory improves the recipe. Evenings in the brewhouse are warm and fragrant. The brewer sits weary but content, hands smelling of molten herbs, hair damp from steam, expression somewhere between triumph and please don't touch that bung. Children sleep nearby, cats curl by fire, finally off duty. Outside, night sounds rise, frogs, distant dogs, perhaps the creak of the mill wheel reminding everyone that bread also has feelings. From tavern or cottage comes laughter where her ale is already poured. Her day's work nourishes joy as much as thirst. Though chronicles praise kings with wine cups, it is ale that sustains the common world. It feeds harvesters, travellers, craftsmen. It comforts sickness and celebrates love. Behind it is quiet labour, a woman stirring mash before dawn, guarding fermentation through nights of prayer and watchfulness, ignoring advice from people who have never lifted a kettle. Her brew keeps the village alive. So when you think of the Middle Ages, picture this humble place, a timbered house with smoke and steam, barrels lined like silent sentinels, and within it a brewer tending the mysterious work of grain, water, and tine. Each mug poured carries warmth of hearth and steady care, a daily miracle made simple and politely carbonated by patience. Before first light, the streets near the market square are silent except for the faint slap of water against cobbles where someone has emptied a bucket. Someone always empties a bucket. As the sky pales, a new sound stirs. The creak of shutters, the rustle of bolts of cloth being lifted from storage, the muted thud of looms slowing to rest after a night's work pretending they don't run themselves. In towns across medieval Europe, there is usually a cloth hall or weaving quarter, a cluster of workshops and long open halls where wool and linen, sometimes silk, become garments, banners, sails, and riches that absolutely refuse to fold themselves. Cloth is life. It warms bodies, marks rank, fills coffers, and informs neighbours who you think you are. Kings levy taxes in cloth, guilds guard its secrets with the intensity of dragons. Distant lands crave fine Flemish wool or Italian silk and will see so at length. A peasant's coarse tunic, and a bishop's glowing cope both begin as fibre spun and woven, humbly, painstakingly, and never quickly, despite what impatient patrons believe. Behind these fabrics lies a world of hands, colours, and endless quiet labour that would like some credit off feast days. The day here begins early. Weavers often work by candlelight before dawn, the gentle clack of treadles and shuttles echoing in still streets like a heartbeat with excellent timing. In a small workshop, a man or woman pushes shuttle through shed, beats weft into place, presses foot on treadle to lift next set of warp threads. The rhythm is steady and hypnotic. Clack, thump, clack, thump. A song of labour that neighbours know as well as church bells and, depending on the hour, prefer less. Outside, merchants arrive with wagons of raw wool from nearby sheep pastures, the sheep having donated their coats with mixed feelings. Great bales, greasy and smelling of lanolin, are unloaded with much grunting and a little prayer. The first step is washing and carding. Women and children often help, scouring dirt and grease in warm water, then combing fibres into smooth, airy rolls that behave beautifully until the wind intervenes. Spinners sit at wheel or simple distaff, twisting fibre into strong thread. Spinning is slow but constant. Every household contributes, and whole streets may hum with wheels the way other streets hum with gossip, both productive in their fashion. Once yarn is ready, it must be dyed if colour is desired and anonymity is is. Dyers are a world unto themselves, working with vats of plant and insect colours. Woad gives blue, madder, red, weld, yellow, oak galls, black. Rare imported cochineal or kermes yield brilliant crimson. Saffron and indigo come from far-off lands and cost dearly enough to make accountants contemplative. The dyer's yard smells sharp and strange, part garden, part alchemy, part don't ask what's in that vat. Cloth or yarn hangs dripping from poles, wind whipping vibrant banners in the air. Apprentices tread vats barefoot to press colour deep, hands stained blue or red for weeks, which is very fashionable if you ask no one. Dyeing is secretive and regulated. Recipes are guarded, guilds enforce rules. Some plants must be prepared with stale urine or fermented solutions, which is chemistry's polite way of being impolite. Heat and timing matter. A poor dyer ruins precious wool and risks guild wrath. A good dyer makes colours sing and customers swoon with joy, not fumes ideally. When done well, hues glow. Deep blues fit for nobles, warm russets for townsfolk. Sunlit gold for merchants' wives who understand the persuasive power of a colour that says prosperity louder than words. The cloth hall itself is a long covered building, often in the market square where it can be properly admired and taxed. Inside, bolts of finished cloth are measured, inspected, and sold. Guild inspectors, sometimes called searchers, check weave tightness and thread count with the calm of people who can end your afternoon. Defects bring fines, excellence earns reputation and higher price, perfection earns skepticism and a second look. Merchants from distant cities walk the aisles, fingers trailing over smooth broadcloth or fine linen, bargaining in murmured French, Italian or Low German, the universal language of surely you can do better. Scales and measures clink, scribes tally transactions, coins change hands in quiet ruster that sounds suspiciously like success. Around this central hall cluster many smaller trades. Fullers pound cloth in water and soap to thicken it, trampling or hammering rhythmically and without apology to neighbours' nerves. Shearmen trim, nap to smooth finish, with the patience of saints and the precision of cats. Tailors cut and stitch, embroiderers add gold and silk as if adding opinions. Dyers reheat vats, carders comb fleece. The whole quarter smells of wet wool, dye plants, soap and sweat, with sweet wafts from bakeries or alehouses nearby reminding everyone why wages matter. Guilds rule this world. To weave in town, one must join the Weavers' Guild, to dye, the Dyers' Guild, to finish, the Fullers' Guild, and to complain, any guild will do. They set wages, protect secrets, care for widows and apprentices, and stage processions that let everyone admire their banners and regulations simultaneously. Guild banners hang bright during festivals, and their parades fill streets with proud craftsmen, each bearing tool of trade and the look of someone who hopes the inspector is watching. Young apprentices serve 7 years or more before earning right to call themselves master. Exams may include weaving a perfect sample or presenting a dyed length of cloth without flaw, an exercise in skill and not crying. For apprentices, life is long hours of menial work, winding bobbins, sweeping floors, carrying water, tending fires under dye vats, and discovering that fetch is a full-body experience. Yet slowly they learn to feel tension of warp, to hear when shuttle moves cleanly, to judge colour by eye alone. A good master teaches not only craft but honesty in measure and dealing, because a crooked L-stick makes enemies faster than a bad die. Cloth trade links villages to the wider world. English and Spanish sheep grow fine fleeces. Flemish towns weave them into coveted broadcloth. Italian merchants carry silks and velvets. German towns dye and finish. And every border collects its tolls with excellent manners. Caravans of bales move overland. Cogs sail with holds full of fabric. Storms and customs officials take their share. Wars are fought over wool roots. Kings court weavers for taxes and glory. Clerks develop hand cramp. A bolt of rich scarlet to equal a year's wages. A merchant may build fortune with clever buying and selling of textiles, and a reputation for never paying full price twice. Yet in the small workshop, life stays simple. A weaver rises, lights candle, oils loom, and works hour after hour, feet dancing on treadles, hands smooth with use and slightly offended by rest days. Wife or daughter spins nearby, son oils gear teeth, an apprentice sweeps like a man who has seen lint become legend. Outside, neighbours bring gossip and food, bells mark prayer times. Sometimes the loom pauses while family attends mass, then resumes its steady song, as if faith and fabric share a metronome. Seasons mark weaving too. Winter is busy. With fields quiet, families spin and weave indoors, looms thumping behind shuttered windows like polite drums. Spring brings shearing and fresh wool to wash and opinions from sheep. Summer may slow if heat drives dyers outside, but also fills markets with travellers eager to touch everything. Autumn is prime trade time. Fairs bustle, merchants stock for winter, promises multiply. Through it all the cloth hall thrives, its stalls full, its inspectors busy, its ink stains permanent. Superstition lives among weavers. Some tie small charms to looms for smooth weaving. Some cross themselves before starting warp. Some threaten the shuttle kindly. It is said a spider's web found on beam brings luck the original quality control. Others keep silent while drawing first thread. Words might tangle work and tempers. Dyers whisper prayers to saints when mixing rare colours. Apprentices knock wood before testing vat heat, having learned the hard way that steam is unpersuadable. Festivals transform the cloth quarter. Guild banners wave, looms are silent, while masters parade in bright tunics of their own making, which is the entire point. Towns may crown a guild king or honour a famed weaver. Markets brim with vivid cloth hung like banners, reds, blues, greens, black as raven wing, all priced according to the laws of supply, demand, and optimism. Minstrels sing, ale flows, customers bargain loudly and leave delighted to have overpaid by only a little. For one day the hard, quiet craft becomes pageant and pride. The social web here is strong. Weavers know each other's families, share tools in need, lend thread or dye, and remember who returned it. Rivalries exist, but so does solidarity. If fire threatens one workshop, others rush with buckets and unsolicited advice. Widows of masters may be supported, orphans apprenticed. A guild funeral could fill streets with solemn tread, looms quiet in respect, shuttles resting like folded hands. At evening the cloth hall grows hushed. Merchants tally coins, scribes close ledgers with inky sighs. Weavers carry finished lengths home or deliver to hall for inspection next day, practicing optimism. Dye vats cool, steam rising ghost-like into night. The air smells faintly sweet with lanolin and herbs. Cats declare the benches theirs. Families gather to eat. Some still spin by hearthlight, the wheel a moon in miniature. In upper rooms, looms rest like silent animals, warp threads gleaming pale in lamplight as if storing dawn. Though chronicles celebrate knights and kings, it is the weavers and dyers who clothe the world and occasionally improve its taste. Their hands turn sheep's fleece and flax stalks into beauty and warmth. They give colour to processions, dignity to merchants, finery to brides, banners to armies, sails to ships, and curtains to people who finally learned about drafts. Quietly, steadily, we weave history's very fabric and request only fair measure and a decent candle. So if you wander a medieval town, listen for the clack of looms and smell of wet wool. Watch merchants fingering bolts in the long-covered hall with reverence bordering on calculation. Somewhere behind a shuttered door, a weaver works late, shaping threads into cloth that will travel farther than he ever will, and be judged by strangers who never met a warp they didn't critique. This is the humble, endless labour of the cloth hall, patient, skilled, a touch proud, and vital to life. When dawn spills pale light across the village, a different rhythm begins to sound. The quiet rasp of a saw, the hollow thud of a mallet, the gentle tap of hammer on chisel that swears it isn't loud enough to wake the rooster. It is. Down a side lane or beside the market green stands the carpenter's workshop, open to the road so neighbours can watch, comment helpfully, and call greetings as they pass. The smell here is sharp and pleasant, fresh-shaved oak, resinous pine, warm beeswax, the perfume of things that behave if you measure twice. This is the place where timber is coaxed into houses, carts, tables, doors, and the countless tools that pretend they made themselves. Carpenters hold a special place in the village. Stone is slow and costly, timber is everywhere and only mildly argumentative. A skilled hand can raise a barn in days, repair a bridge after flood, and craft the wheels that keep trade rolling instead of sulking in a ditch. Lords respect them, peasants rely on them, and churches call them to build roofs that shelter prayers and occasionally the pigeons that didn't read the plans. The carpenter's day begins while mist still hangs on fields. He sweeps yesterday's sawdust, tomorrow's kindling, sets out tools in patient order, and checks the stack of board seasoning under shed roofs. Moisture is a quiet enemy with noisy consequences. Boards must dry months before use, else they warp, twist, and develop opinions. He runs hands over beams, feeling grain and weight, listening for creaks that warn of hidden rot. Wood can keep secrets, but not from knuckles that know. His tools are simple but precise. Saws of various teeth for rip and crosscut, axes for hewing beams, adzes to smooth, planes to true edges so they stop pretending they already were, chisels to carve mortise and tenon, wooden mallets for gentle persuasion, iron hammers for nails when nails could be spared. They price themselves like small sins. Nails are dear, so he joins with pegs and clever joints that lock like handshakes. A straight edge and chalk line mark true cuts. An auger bore clean holes with the patience of a saint. Over years these tools become extensions of his hands, their handles worn smooth as river stones and twice as trusted. Timber arrives by many paths. Local woods yield oak for strength, elm for wheels and hubs, ash for handles, pine and fir for boards and quick construction. Sometimes great logs float downriver from distant forests, or merchants haul exotic woods, walnut, chestnut, for fine work and finer bills. The carpenter knows each intimately. Oak's stubborn bravery, ashes spring, pine's easy cutting but quick splinter, elm's twisty grain that resists splitting and arguments, ideal for hubs that must endure everything except compliments. Today perhaps a farmer arrives, hat in hand, needing a new plough handle or repair of broken cart shaft. The carpenter listens, nods, and measures with quick eye, because tape is a luxury and memory is faster. Soon mallet and chisel ring out as he shapes fresh wood, fitting iron straps and dowels until the joint stops pretending to be separate. A wheel may need rebuilding, hubs carefully bored, spokes shaped, rims steamed and bent into perfect circle that will not accept nearly. The blacksmith will later shoe the rim with iron, but wood is the carpenter's domain, the quiet skeleton under everyone else's heroics. Another customer might be the village priest, wanting new pews or a crucifix carved for chapel. Tasteful, durable, resistant to candle accidents. A merchant comes seeking sturdy chests to guard cloth and secrets. A brewer needs fresh barrel racks. Work flows from every trade. Few can prosper without the carpenter's bench, though many try and then come back politely. Payment may be coin, but more often is barter, grain, ale, cloth, or promise of hands when he raises a roof, which is a currency that does not inflate but occasionally oversleeps. In some towns, carpenters band together in guilds that guard secrets and set wages with the serene certainty of men holding the only ladders. Apprenticeships last years. A boy learns first to sweep and fetch advanced disciplines, then to saw straight, then to join timber tight so daylight stops peeking through. He studies grain, moisture, weight, and the endless varieties of joinery, dovetail, mortise and tenon, scarf and bridle, the quiet grammar of wood. A master tests him with a finished piece, perhaps a small chest or door built flawless and true. If it creaks, the exam continues. Only then may he take work on his own and misplace his own chalk line. The rhythm of carpentry follows seasons. In spring, ploughs and wagons need repair for planting. The fields do not wait for excuses. Summer is for barns and bridges. Dry weather suits building and tempers. Autumn brings cider presses and grain bins. Cheerful work that smells like patience. Winter, though cold, is time for indoor craft. Tables, chairs, fine coffers, toys and tools, the small civilized objects that make a long night shorter. Some carpenters travel to great projects, castle hoardings, cathedral roofs, manor halls that insist on more angels. Others stay rooted, shaping the quiet bones of village life, which is most of life anyway. Inside the shop the work sings. Saw teeth bite with steady hiss. Plain shavings curl in soft ribbons, falling to floor in fragrant heaps that children call treasure and adults call sweeping. Chisels thud and tap, mallets echo like distant drums, politely asking joints to cooperate. Sunbeams slant through a window dusted with saw particles, make tiny golden stars that refuse to sweep up. The carpenter hums under breath, or teaches an apprentice how to keep edge keen on whetstone, because a dull blade writes essays in splinters. Cats sleep on wood piles, sparrows nest in eaves and critique the cornice. Sometimes big days come, a barn raising when neighbours gather and gravity is briefly outvoted. The carpenter directs beams, pegged, posts hoisted by many hands, mallets driving home joints while women bring ale and bread, and very good advice. The whole community works as one. When roof finally rests in place, cheers rise, and a small garland may be nailed to highest beam for luck, and because it looks brave against the sky. Such days knit village together, and the carpenter stands proud though weary, splinters counting as confetti. There is artistry here too. A simple door may bear carved vine or cross that catches morning light just so. A chest might be adorned with running animals, or saints that look kindly on socks. Church work especially calls for beauty. Choir stalls with curling foliage, rude screens laced like lace in oak, canopies that persuade eyes to lift. Some masters travel far for these commissions, their names whispered in admiration and sawdust. Yet even the humblest village carpenter may let his hand wander into ornament, leaving signature of craft in unseen corner, a leaf here, a line there, a quiet, I was here and I cared. Faith touches wood. Carpenters often claim St. Joseph as patron. A small image may stand on shelf, dusty but respected, supervising measuring from the corner. Before raising roof or cutting beam, some whisper blessing or cross themselves. Wood seems alive. It swells, it sings, it remembers storms, and treating it well feels near to prayer, or at least good insurance. Dangers lurk quietly. A saw can slip, a beam can fall, nails split wood and fly like offended birds. Splinters infect, blades bite deep, pride deeper. Heavy timbers crush feet, ladders misunderstand balance. Apprentices learn caution, tie back hair, keep hands behind saw, never stand under lifted beam, and do not argue with gravity. Still, accidents happen and scars are common. Small maps of lessons learned once and remembered always. Evening finds the shop calm, perfumed with resin and shavings. Tools are cleaned, blades wrapped, planes oiled until they gleam like contentment. The carpenter sweeps slow circles, enjoying hush after long day, listening to boards settle as if they too exhale. Outside, children play with scraps fashioned into toys that advertise tomorrow's skills. A customer comes late for finished stool. They chat while fireflies wink in dusk, and the bench decides it was worth the glue. Though chronicles praise stone castles and great cathedrals, most medieval life stands on timber, houses, barns, bridges, carts, ships' frames, furniture, doors, wheels, the ordinary miracles that get no heralds. Each passes under Carpenter's careful hand. Without him, travel stalls, trade falters, homes sag, and the sermon leaks. His craft is quiet but everywhere, the useful beauty underfoot. So when you picture the Middle Ages, remember this small workshop beams, stacked, saws whispering, mallets knocking with diplomatic force. Here a man shapes forests into shelter and tools, one careful cut at a time, arguing gently with wood until it agrees. The carpenter's bench is the heartbeat of timber in a world built by hand, steady, precise, and just vain enough to sand the last corner twice. Beyond the buses of market and guildhall, at the edge of a rising cathedral or city wall, lies a world of dust and ringing iron, the stonemason's yard. Here, under open sky, men shape the bones of medieval cities, carving silent stone into arches, towers, and saints that will outlast generations and most budgets. It is noisy, patient, and strangely reverent work, the sort of devotion that leaves your back aching and your name unremembered, which is, apparently, part of the charm. The yard begins at dawn, mist still clings to half-built walls, and cold dew darkens blocks of limestone or sandstone, stacked like a giant's playthings that refuse to stack themselves. Apprentices sweep yesterday's chips into piles, fetch fresh water, and set out mallets and chisels, trying not to mix the master's tools with anyone else's under penalty of a very educational glare. Masters arrive soon after, their aprons already dusted white, eyes scanning today's plans, tracings on smooth boards, parchment drawings pinned under stones, or full-sized templates scratched up plaster tracing floors. Geometry is prayer here, measured, muttered, and not to be contradicted by enthusiasm. Stone arrives from distant quarries on slow carts. Horses strain under weight. Chains groan as blocks are slid down ramps that always look a little too adventurous. Each stone is marked by quarrymen, chalk letters or mason's marks to show size and quality. The foreman inspects for flaws the way a hawk inspects a mouse, with interest and no mercy. Hidden cracks could doom a vault years later. Better to break hopes early than ceilings late. Good blocks are sorted by use. Heavy ashlar for walls, fine grain for carving, strong dense stone for piers that will pretend not to notice 1,000 tons above them. Workspaces sprawl like an outdoor workshop stitched together by footprints and ambition. Each mason claims a banker waist-high stone bench where he works and occasionally lectures gravity. There he places block, chooses tool, and begins to shape. Mallet strikes chisel with steady rhythm. Tock, 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 echoing through yard in slow music of craft that says both progress and don't rush me. Chips fly, dust rises pale in morning light, faces whiten as if the yard were training saints by accident. Tools are simple but many, and all of them opinionated. Point chisels rough out bulk, tooth chisels leave grooved surface like a comb through stone, flat chisels smooth with the patience of a monk. Mallets of beech or hornbeam drive force. Compasses and rules mark measures. Plumb lines and levels check true because eyes lie when they're tired. Wooden templates trace curves of arch or leaf of capital. Measuring rods whisper fractions older than anyone present. Every master carries a set of tools wrapped in leather, treasured, well kept, and not to be borrowed unless you enjoy sweeping the entire yard as a moral exercise. Hierarchy shapes the yard as firmly as mortar. The master mason oversees design and structure, mathematician, artist, engineer, and occasional weather prophet. He calculates thrust of arches, weight of vaults, safe height of walls, and the exact moment when optimism must yield to a buttress. Beneath him journeymen do skilled carving and setting, turning drawings into edges that catch light just so. Apprentices haul stone, sharpen tools, and learn by imitation, which is to say by being corrected kindly, then less kindly, and eventually correctly. Each hopes to carve a masterpiece or earn a mark on a great project. All first learn to keep fingers out from under blocks. Some stones are mere blocks for walls, others bloom into art. You may see a carver bent over angel's wing, each feather slowly coaxed from cold grain, as if persuading stone to remember it once was cloud. Nearby another shapes grotesque face to grin from gutter. Rainwater needs good company after all. Capitals sprout leaves, vines, and saints. Tracery for windows curls delicate as lace that refuses to blow away. Days and weeks may go into a single piece, because glory, it turns out, is time-consuming. The yard moves in teamwork like a great dusty orchestra. When a vault rises, cranes and treadwheels hoist shaped stones skyward. Men in the great hamster drums walk carefully, converting breakfast into altitude. Setters on scaffolding guide each into place with shouted orders and guiding ropes, the universal language of left a bit. No, the other left. Below, masons cut keystones to perfect wedge. Above, hands coax them into the waiting gap. A mistake high-opt can crack an arch and several tempers, so the master checks constantly, and praise arrives only when everything continues not to fall. Noise blends with talk. Masons swap news of guild, fair wages, and safe quarries, which is to say none in winter. They tease apprentices, sing ballads between hammer blows, and pass along jokes older than the scaffolding. Some whistle to pace strokes, others work in quiet meditation, hearing only the stone's small answers. Dust coats hair and beards white. Leather aprons stiffen with lime and sweat until they could practically stand up and go home without you. Food breaks are simple and perfectly earned. Bread, cheese, onions, sometimes ale brought in earthen jugs that spark brief theological debates about whose turn it is. Men eat perched on stone piles, laughing, assessing weather, and discussing cathedral progress. The master may sketch the next stage in dust, or on a board while they chew, lines of geometry appearing between crumbs. Then tools are lifted again and the yard returns to its measured thunder. Evenings see chisels dressed, edges trued, and tools stored. Some go to tavern, others home bone-tired but quietly proud, which is the best seasoning for sleep. Faith underpins labour like a foundation you never see. Each morning some yards pray before work, especially on great churches. Builders see themselves raising a house for God. Even those not devout feel awe when a wall climbs straight and a vault closes clean. Many scratch a small cross on stone before final strike, hoping for strength and safety. Saints of builders, often St. Thomas or St. Blaise, are invoked softly, because shouting at saints has mixed results. Seasons bring challenge and unsolicited character. Winter freezes stone and numbs fingers. Braziers burn, but dust turns to icy paste that remembers every footprint. Summer bakes the yard until sweat runs, lime burns skin, and the air tastes faintly of ambition. Rain halts little unless torrential scaffolds slick, but work pushes on, because timelines do not read weather. Great works can take lifetimes. Patience becomes part of every mason's soul, along with grit in the teeth and a profound relationship with shade. Guild rules protect the craft and everyone's temper. Only trained masons may cut stone. Secrets of geometry are kept close, wrapped in oaths and practical pride. Journeymen carry a mason's mark, a personal symbol chiseled on each finished piece, both signature and line item for pay. Those marks still hide on ancient cathedrals today, a quiet roll call of hands who outlived themselves by several centuries. Pride runs deep, and generally keeps its voice down. To carve a vault rib true or sculpt a saintly face is legacy enough. Many know their work may stand long after they die, anonymous but enduring, which is less anonymous than you think when a sunbeam lands exactly where you meant it to. Some masters leave name on cornerstone, most leave only mark and the silent strength of wall. Stone remembers, that is consolation and, occasionally, rebuke. Evenings the yard quiets but doesn't sleep. Cats prowl among chips as if inspecting. A night watchman tends brazier and stories. Sometimes the master stays late with lamp, drawing the next flying buttress or daring spire, testing lines that look like music in chalk. He dreams shapes no one yet built, trusting hands of his men, patience of stone, and the mild cooperation of wind. So when you look at a medieval cathedral or castle, remember this dusty yard, the clang and chatter, white-haired craftsmen guiding young hands, designs traced full-scale on floor, and blocks patiently tamed into beauty that pretend it was effortless. It was a world of labour and quiet genius, of measured blows and unmeasured hope, giving shape to dreams in enduring stone, the sort that makes you tilt your head back and forget, for a breath, how much dust it took. Every fortress lives or dies by the watch kept upon its walls. Behind towers and battlements, beyond portcullis and moat, it is the castle guard who holds the first and last measure of safety. Their work is often invisible to guests feasting in the great hall or to merchants busy in the yard, yet without their patient vigilance no lord could sleep secure or boast about sleeping secure. The guard is a varied company. Some are seasoned men-at-arms, scarred veterans who prefer steady pay to wandering war. Others are younger sons of farmers or tradesmen, drawn by coin, a bed, and daily bread in roughly that order. A few are retainers of gentle birth learning soldier's craft. They wear what the Lord provides, patched mail shirts, padded gambesons, kettle hats or battered helms. Spears, bills and crossbows line the armoury racks. Swords hang at the hips of trusted men. Trust, here, being measured in years served and how rarely one borrows arrows. Their day begins at dawn muster. As light touches the battlements a horn sounds, and the captain calls, "Roll in the cobbled yard." Men gather stamping cold feet, salute with spear, or bowing if the Lord appears. Posture improves miraculously. Orders are given, wall walks, gatehouse posts, errands beyond the walls. Lapses from the night's sleep on watch, ale too deep, earn swift words or, if serious, lashes. Discipline keeps everyone alive. Also, it keeps stories shorter. Then they scatter to posts. Some climb the stair to pace the wall walk in pairs, eyes on road and river, ears straining for hoofbeat or distant horn. Others man the gate, working drawbridge and portcully, checking travellers and tallying tolls. The arithmetic is simple, the arguments less so. A few serve as runners from hall to towers or escort merchants to the steward. In towers braziers glow red, on the wind pennons flick and snap, in boots pebbles hold conferences about endurance. Routine fills the hours. On the walls the rhythm is steady but never idle. Step, pause, scan. Trade a low word with a partner. Feel for roughness in bowstring. Glance at the sky for weather that always pretend to be innocent. Below, off-duty men drill in the yard, spear thrusts, shield walls, slow turns with pikes. Archers practice at straw butts, shafts thudding in a heartbeat rhythm. If the beat falters, the captain's eyebrow does not. Meals are plain. Guards take bread, cheese and pottage in the guardroom where a fire burns and weapons hang to dry. Dice click on overturned shields. Carved men shuffle on a scratchboard that insists on favouring veterans. Quiet craft passes from older hands, how to spot an ambush by birds lifting, how a guilty traveller looks at the gate, how to walk a parapet in ice, very carefully, but with authority. Danger is rare and sudden. Bandits may test the night. A rival lord's riders might appear like a weather squall. One day's peace becomes next day's alarm. At the horn, men spring to places, archers to loops, spearmen to gate, captain to the wall to read the field. The calm threshold hardens. Every order carries the weight of stone, and the memory of the last time someone didn't listen. Siege is the harshest teacher. Then the guard becomes an army, manning walls by day and night, pouring boiling water, launching stones, patching breaches under fire. Fatigue grinds and fear gnaws, but the drum of duty holds. Chronicles praise lords. It is the watch who keep arrows flying and portcullis shut. Ink is cheap, vigilance isn't. Other threats are quieter. Fire hunts timber hoardings, plague can sweep a garrison, winter slicks every step. Still the rounds are walked, the lanterns trimmed, the bucket chain kept ready. If nothing happens, success looks suspiciously like boredom. The guard accepts the insult. Seasons write themselves on the watch. Spring rain slicks stone and blooms rust. Summer glare stings eyes and flies. Worry faces. Autumn smells of apples and smoke as rents come in. Winter bites fingers through gloves and stretches the long, dark, thin as wire. Yet jokes are shared, mittens passed along, and a spare cloak found for a shivering recruit. Logistics with a conscience, which is the only kind worth having. Hierarchy keeps shape. A captain commands, often a trusted sergeant knighted for service. Under him lieutenants assign posts, count bolts and arrows, report to the steward. Good men rise. Betrayal ruins all with remarkable efficiency. Keys to armory and treasure pass only to hands that have proved steady, and preferably attached to wrists that don't gamble poorly. The guard polices within as well as without. They quiet tavern brawls, escort prisoners, and shadow the money changers on market day. A mailed hand on a shoulder speaks law as clearly as the steward's roll. Fewer adjectives, better results. Evening turns the day. Fresh men take the walls, the tired head to bunks, straw pallets, shared blankets, a low blaze. Gear is mended, a lute may thrum. Someone swears his bowstring shrank in the rain, it did not. At sunset the horn sounds again. Gates close, the castle gathers itself behind iron and oak like a great beast curling in. Night watch is hardest. Fields vanish, sound travels oddly. Every rust could be thief or fox. The fox rarely volunteers clarification. Torches gutter, lanterns smoke. Men pace in slow circuits, whispering to keep sleep at bay. An owl calls, a dog answers. Frost creaks in rope and chain. And still the eyes keep their covenant with the walls, an agreement renewed hourly and broken at no one's convenience. Their reward is modest, a wage, meals, sometimes a small plot or share of plunder. Respect is mixed resented at the gate, thanked at the fire. But among themselves the bond is iron. Men who have faced first arrows or deepest cold together are kin enough, and their humour, dry as old leather, keeps more warmth than the brazier. So imagine the castle not as silent stone but alive with these sentries. Boots on the wall walk, low talk in the guardroom, the sudden brazen note when danger lifts its head. The guard is the spine of power unseen, patient and awake, and frankly undercredited in most songs, but then minstrels prefer supper to sentry duty. Beneath the grand halls and lofty towers of a medieval castle, far from banners and tapestries, roars a world of fire and scent, the kitchens and bakehouse. Here, among huge hearths and echoing stone vaults, an army of cooks and helpers feed not only the lord and his household, but also guards, servants, guests, and sometimes half the countryside during feast days. It is hot, noisy, fragrant, and endlessly busy, the unseen heart that keeps a fortress alive, and mercifully less cranky. The kitchen is usually built in the castle's lower court or a separate stone range to guard against fire. Thick walls, high chimneys and arched windows vent heat and smoke. Floors are flagged in stone, blackened by centuries of soot that no amount of heroic scrubbing will persuade to leave. Racks of spits, huge cauldrons, and iron hooks fill the space. Above, beams and pulley ropes dangle to lift heavy pots, as if gravity were a friendly suggestion. The air smells of wood smoke, roasting meat, herbs, and baking bread, the four horsemen of contentment. Before dawn, kitchen staff begin their day. Scullions and turnspits coax life from embers kept overnight, sweeping hearth and sharpening knives that swear they were sharp yesterday. Potboys haul water from well or cistern, shoulders straining under sloshing buckets that somehow slosh more when overseen. Gardeners and foragers bring baskets of herbs, onions, leeks. Dairymaids arrive with fresh milk and butter churned before sunup, because cows keep their own schedule. Soon the head cook strides in, often a stern, clever man or woman with years of craft and the gaze that finds an unwashed pan at 30 paces. First task, bread. The bakehouse, sometimes a separate chamber with great domed ovens, glows red before light. Bakers heat with bundles of faggots, then rake coals aside and sweep the stone floors clean until they squeak. Dough from previous night's kneading, wheat for lord's table, rye or maslin for servants, goes in on long wooden peels. The smell of baking fills every passage and improves everyone's manners. Bread is life here. Trenchers for meat, loaves for guards, fine white manchette for nobility who can taste a missing handful of flour apparently. Meanwhile, kitchen hearths come alive. Gigantic spit hold whole sides of beef, venison haunches or boars for feasts. Turnspit boys, and in larger kitchens, the famous turnspit dogs, treading their wheels like furry engineers, keep meat slowly rotating. Cauldrons bubble with pottages, thick stews of grain, root and bits of meat or fish to feed workers who do not have time to chew luxuriously. Skillets hiss with onions in dripping. Kettles warm ale mulled with spice that whispers, "You are richer than you feel." Supplies arrive steadily through postern doors, fish from river, game from park, flour from mill, casks of ale and wine rolled from cool cellars. Pantry clerks tally each with the satisfaction of people who know exactly where the plums went. Cellarers unlock storerooms stacked with cheese, dried beans, salted pork, barrels of herring, and fragrant spices, cinnamon, cloves, pepper for lord's dishes. These are wealth worth more than gold by weight and more persuasive than most speeches. Hierarchy hums. Head cook plans menu according to season and lord's wishes. Roast peacock with gilded feathers for feast, because subtlety is sometimes not subtle. Plain boiled beef for garrison. Undercooks chop and stir. Pastry cooks craft pies both savoury and sweet. Sauce makers grind herbs, nuts and vinegar in mortars until the room smells like triumph. Boys fetch and carry, learning slowly and breaking quickly. Scullions scrub endless pots. Everyone knows their place. The kitchen runs like a small army, but better fed and, on average, better tempered. On ordinary day, meals come twice. Hearty midday dinner and lighter supper at dusk. Guards and servants eat simple fare, coarse bread, pottage, cheese, and gratitude is requested if they're always provided. Nobles dine on white bread, roasts, game birds, fish in sauce, custards, fruit tarts. Presentation matters. Trenchers arranged with colour, sauces poured bright green or golden. Some cooks carve coats of arms in pie crusts or craft sugar subtleties, shaped like castles or beasts. Because if you eat your heraldry, why wouldn't you? Feast day is storm of effort. Hunters bring deer, fishermen deliver fresh catch still gleaming, butchers in courtyards strip carcasses, meat salted or hung in orderly rows that impress and alarm. Pastry cooks mould huge crust coffins to hold spiced fillings. Sauciers crush almonds for blancmange, boil sugar for sweets that defy both gravity and restraint. Pages run messages. Stewards oversee with sharp eye and tender conscience for budgets. Fires blaze hotter, air thick with spice and roast. Musicians may slip in to test hall's sound. The kitchen pretend not to notice the rehearsal and doubles the recipe. All know the Lord expects spectacle, which is conveniently measured in platters. Danger never far. Fire is greatest fear. One spark on straw could destroy whole keep. Water stands ready. Stone vaulting and detached bakehouse help, but staff stay watchful, eyebrows meaningfully singed. Burns and cuts are common. Turnspit boys' arms ache from hours at wheel. Smoke stings eyes. Heat drains strength. Pride hauls it back again. To feed a castle is honour, and the blisters are the footnotes. Season changes menu. Spring brings young lamb, herbs, fresh eggs with shells thin as rumour. Summer fills larders with berries, river fish, early grains that smirk at grinding stones. Autumn is bounty. Slaughter of hogs, apples, nuts, mushrooms. The larder makes smug noises. Winter leans on salted meat, dried peas, stored roots, with spice to enliven the honest grey of survival. Cooks know how to stretch stores, yet surprise the palate, a skill prized by the Lord and adored by everyone else. Faith threads kitchen too. Meatless days keep fishmongers busy. Cooks create rich dishes without flesh. Eel pies, almond milk stews that convert doubters in 2 spoonfuls. Feast of patron Saint May see blessed bread. Lent rearranges the entire menu and the attitude. Prayers are said for safety of hearth and plenty of larders, heaven being politely informed of tomorrow's shopping list. At night, after last platters cleared from great hall and leftovers sent to servants or poor at gate, kitchen finally slows. Fires banked but not out, bread ovens cooling with satisfied sighs. Staff eat plain supper, bits of roast, stew, bread dipped in dripping, laughing and recounting feast miracles and near misses. Knives are honed, pots scrubbed till they consider their reflection, floors swept of bones and spilled flour that vowed to stay put. Head cook checks stores by lamplight, counts eggs with prophetic accuracy, and sketches tomorrow on the back of today. The bakehouse too rests, ovens dark until midnight, bakers return to knead dough for morning time, like yeast, rises when least convenient. Outside, guards patrol silent court. From windows wafts faint warm scent of cooling loaves, the castle's lullaby. A fortress sleeps easier when its belly is full, strategy, wrapped in a crust. To imagine castle life, do not picture only banners and knights. picture this roaring, fragrant kitchen and bakehouse, where unknown hands fed armies and nobles, turned harvest into sustenance, and kept stone halls warm with life. Here fire is tamed, hunger outmaneuvered, and power quietly plated with a sprig of something green, because presentation matters even to history. High above the roar of the great hall and the clang of the yard lies a quieter, sunlit world, the solar. In many castles this was the private withdrawing room of the lady of the household, part chamber, part workshop, part seat of influence. Here the stone walls soften with tapestries, the air warms with fire, and voices hush to the pace of spinning wheels, reading and counsel. It is a world apart, yet one that shapes life below, because diplomacy with a needle often does what a sword cannot. The solar is usually built on an upper floor, facing the rising sun. Thick arrow-slit windows have been widened into small glazed lights where the family can afford it, shutters closed tight against storm and winter drafts being loyal to no house. Walls hung with embroidered hangings to cut cold. Floor strewn with woven rugs or rushes scented with herbs. A carved chest holds linens and treasures. A great chair by the hearth marks the lady's seat. Here she could look out across courtyard, gardens, or rolling fields, ruling quietly from warmth and light, the sort of command chair that doubles as a nursery and a council bench naturally. Morning begins early. The lady rises from her chamber. Sometimes the solar doubles as sleeping room, sometimes separate, and comes to supervise daily work. Maids bring ewers of water, comb out hair, lace gowns. Pins vanish and reappear with the same mystery as rainbows. In this calm space she listens to reports. Steward on household accounts, reeve on harvest, nurse on children's health. Though a man may hold nominal power, many castles run on her judgment, smoothing frictions, settling provisions, and deciding what feasts or fasts the household will keep. A terrifying authority, if you're a pastry. Isle craft fills the room. Embroidery frames stand ready, their silk and gold threads shining in morning light like patient lightning. Ladies and companions bend over intricate saints, beasts, or floral borders destined for chapel or hall. Spinning wheels or drop spindles hum, baskets overflow with wool and flax that multiply when no one is looking. Some weave narrow tapestries, others sew garments. Work is both piety and prestige. Fine embroidery shows skill, wealth, and devotion. It also keeps hands busy while politics are quietly arranged. A half-finished altar cloth may rest beside a child's simple tunic, because holiness and jam stains coexist. Reading is cherished here when books exist. Illuminated psalter or romance sits on a lectern. If the lady cannot read Latin, a companion or chaplain reads aloud translation fees payable in honeycakes. Stories of saints, Arthurian knights, or courteous love mingle with scripture. Music too drifts through the solar. Lute or harp strummed by a handmaid, soft songs to pass hours. These are our idle moments. They create culture and comfort that shape the household's soul and occasionally rescue a frayed temper before it frays the staff. Children often play at her feet. Young heirs learn letters, younger daughters practice stitches. Both discover that ink and silk equally stain. Nurse watches infants near the hearth. Between lessons and games, the lady teaches manners, prayers, and family tales, when to bow, when to speak, and when to breathe quietly and let the steward finish counting. In this way, the solar becomes first schoolroom, shaping the next generation of lords and ladies, plus a handful of very opinionated toddlers. Visitors find here another court, smaller but powerful. Lesser knights' wives seek advice. Local nuns bring news or ask patronage. Merchants present fine cloth or jewellery with hopeful eyebrows. Quietly, dowries are arranged, disputes soothed, marriages planned. The great hall may echo with men's oaths and feasts, but upstairs the solar weaves the social fabric, the sort that doesn't unravel when someone sneezes at the wrong moment. faith is a gentle presence. A crucifix hangs above the hearth. Candles burn before the Virgin or a patron saint. Here prayers are whispered for a husband at war, a son at school, or a sick servant below. Sometimes the chaplain visits to read from lives of saints. Sometimes the ladies sing plain chants softly as they work, proof that harmony isn't limited to choirs or dinner seating charts. Seasons colour life. Winter keeps the household close. The solar blazes with fire, tapestries thick, work steady, and cats smug. Spring brings planning of gardens, clothing for the new season, Easter gifts wrapped in cheerful ambition. Summer may draw the lady to a shaded window to oversee herb drying and stores. She might visit meadows or orchards, returning with sensible boots and impractical flowers. Autumn is full with harvest accounting and feast preparation, also known as arithmetic with pumpkin. While thought gentle, a lady's role is demanding. She manages supplies, medicines, and servants, defends the castle if her husband is absent, arbitrates quarrels in tones that move mountains and occasionally husbands. Letters may be dictated here, sealed with her ring wax behaving, ink attempting mischief. Finances for dowries and rents are recorded with the kind of accuracy that terrifies careless bailiffs. Her calm strength holds the community through siege or famine, leadership delivered in a measured voice with a cup of broth. Clothing and beauty are tended here too. Wardrobe chests brim with gowns, veils, and mantles. The future always seems to require more ribbons. Maids' heat irons for crimping, mix scented oils, polish jewelry until it politely reflects. Special gowns are prepared for feast or mass. Children's clothes mended with a speed that implies sorcery. On a quiet afternoon, laughter may bubble as new fabrics are tried or songs shared while dressing dolls, diplomacy's soft rehearsal. Yet this is its cloistered luxury. The solar rings with spinning and stitching because garments must be made. Herbal remedies are prepared because illness refuses to read the calendar. The lady may soothe a frightened servant, plan rations for winter, or pray for safety during siege. In her quiet upper room she bears weight equal to knights below. Mail exchange for linen, orders for thread, and the results are oddly more comfortable. Evenings grow warm and golden, the fire crackles low, women finish the day's sewing, children sleep on cushions as if invented for them. Perhaps the husband climbs the stairs to share wine and talk away from noise, rediscovering that policy sounds better in a soft chair. Candles flicker, shadows dance on tapestries of saints and hunting scenes. Outside, wind moans through arrow slits, but within is an island of light and steadiness, a small republic of patience. So when you think of castle life, look beyond armory and hall. Picture this calm lady's solar hearth glowing, silk threads shimmering, books and music soft, children learning, servants coming for counsel. A quiet stronghold of culture and care that kept the fortress human. A command centre with cushions where power speaks gently and still gets everything done. At the edge of a rising hill where stone walls meet the sky, there is always a threshold, the place where road becomes fortress. In the Middle Ages, this place was called the Gatehouse, and it was far more than a door. It was a watchtower, a customs post, a first line of defence, and a stage where the power of the lord behind the walls was quietly displayed. Quietly, in the sense that a pair of towers, a murder hole, and a toothed iron grille are subtle the way thunder is shy. Long before a traveller reaches it, the gatehouse makes its presence felt. The road narrows and climbs, ditches or a moat glimmer below. Perhaps a wooden drawbridge spans dark water that looks suspiciously eager to receive the unwary. High above, twin towers flank an arched portal, their battlements cut with arrow slits. The portcullis, a heavy grid of timber shod in iron, waits half raised like teeth, which is exactly the impression intended. To approach is to feel watched. Somewhere behind those narrow openings, guards measure every movement with the patience of men paid to notice everything and forget nothing. Approach begins with sound. Hooves ring on bridge planks, carts creak and groan, chains clink where the drawbridge hangs, and reminds everyone what gravity can accomplish. From within come muted voices, the shift of armoured men, the bark of a dog who has very firm views on strangers. Flags stir, smoke curls from guardroom hearth. Even the most ordinary day carries a sense of small ceremony. You are entering someone's stronghold, which is to say their home, office, courthouse, and in a pinch, statement necklace. Travellers pause before the outer barbican, if one exists, a low-walled forecourt meant to trap enemies but serving also as waiting space for the merely inconvenient. Merchants halt wagons, peasants lead pigs and chickens close, clutching permits or hoping to bargain. Pilgrims tighten grips on staves, messengers adjust packs and look like men who have learned to love punctuality from the wrong end of a deadline. Here tolls may be demanded, coin for goods, a measure of grain, or simply proof of loyalty to the Lord. It is amazing how loyalty improves when the alternative is not entering. Guards appear. Some wear quilted gambesons and steel caps, others chainmail with surcoats in house colours that have seen more weather than a shepherd. Spears or crossbows gleam. A captain may question newcomers' name, purpose, whom they serve. Merchants show charters from guilds, messengers produce sealed letters. Pilgrims sometimes rely on badges and prayers, portable documentation, heavenly edition. Suspicion rises if answers falter. A shout could bring more men from within. Yet most days end with nod and wave through. Trade feeds castle as much as it protects it, and no garrison ever sneered at a wagon full of salt and gossip. The gatehouse itself is more complex than it first seems. Above the main arch, floors of stone or heavy timber hold guardrooms. Arrow loops allow defenders to rain bolts or arrows down if trouble stirs, a sky that occasionally offers weather of a very specific kind. Murder holes pierce the roof of passage, ready for stones, boiling water, or hot sand in siege, the medieval spa treatment no one ordered. Thick double doors close behind the iron portcullis, turning the passage into a trap. Yet when peace reigns, these fearsome features fade into background of daily life, like the impressive cookware in a kitchen where porridge is the star. Inside, a fire crackles where off-duty guards warm themselves. Benches line walls, racks hold spears and halberds. A small table bears ledgers, lists of tolls and visitors, because memory is excellent until someone disputes a fee. The smell is of smoke, leather and metal polish, mixed with faint damp of stone. Dogs doze until strangers stir them to barking, then return to the crucial work of sleeping professionally. Sometimes a small shrine sits in corner, St. George or Michael, guarding soldiers who watch the gate, the watchers watched, an arrangement everyone finds reassuring. Life here follows rhythm of traffic. At dawn the portcullis is winched up with groan and clatter, drawbridge chains rattle. Someone makes the remark about another glorious morning, and means it more than half. Farmers from outlying manors bring grain or eggs to sell. Servants return from fields with carts of firewood. Traders from distant towns arrive with cloth, salt or wine, hopeful for sale inside walls, and not above mentioning how scarce their goods have become lately as prices coincidentally rise. Messengers gallop through, splashed with mud. Children press close to see strangers. Dogs weave underfoot until shooed away. The whole threshold beats like a pulse. Ceremony accompanies important arrivals. When a noble guest approaches, trumpets may sound. Subtlety, again. Guards snap to attention, captain rides forward, and the drawbridge lowers with deliberate grace. Banners wave, grooms hurry to stables, servants to kitchen. The gatehouse becomes theatre, displaying the Lord's wealth and order, which is the polite way of say, we can afford everything you can see, and several things you can't. The visitor passes under carved coats of arms, and into courtyard lined with curious faces that will remember every detail by supper. Yet ordinary days define the gatehouse more than pageantry. Guards stamp cold feet in winter, chat softly in summer heat, sharpen weapons, dice to pass time, and develop expert opinions on weather, horses, and policy. Apprentices sweep an oil chains. A blacksmith may appear to fix hinge or ring, leaving the air flavoured with iron and importance. Dogs patrol yard, noses to ground. Travellers bring gossip, a new tax upriver, war rumours, strange weather that is, regrettably, never strange enough to cancel work. The Gatehouse listens and quietly feeds news inward, a rumour mill with excellent masonry. Defence drills punctuate routine. Horn blasts, portcullis slams down, archers take posts. It may be only practice, but adrenaline spikes, and no one wants to be the anecdote about the man who forgot the latch. Young guards learn to drop chains smoothly, to aim from arrow loops, to pour stones from parapet without braining their own sergeant. In real danger, bandit, raiders, revolt, this calm threshold becomes deadly funnel where few can pass alive. The geometry of the place suddenly makes terrible, perfect sense. Season changes colour the place. In spring, mud splashes wagons and guards grumble about wet boots while pretending they love the lush countryside. Summer sees dust and heat shimmering off stone, buzzing flies, open gates for ventilation, and a general agreement that armour is a design marvel and also a portable oven. Autumn smells of apples and smoke as harvest carts rumble in and everyone claims they predicted this year's yield. Winter ices the drawbridge chains and stiffens hands. Travellers arrive cloaked and pale, grateful for warmth beyond, a gratitude best expressed, the guards note, in exact tolls. Festivals brighten it, wreaths hung at Christmas, flowers in May, banners on saints' days. Even fortresses appreciate accessorizing. Tolls and markets grow around the gate where traffic pauses, vendors thrive. Pies, cheap ale, shoe repair, charms for safe travel, results may vary. Children sell rushlights, beggars plead to those waiting entry. A peddler of needles appears whenever someone insists they just bought needles last week. A small economy hums, watched by guards who sometimes join in buying treats, strictly for morale. The Gatehouse also serves justice. Petty thieves caught outside may be tried in its shadow, toll cheats punished, proclamations nailed to its door where no one can miss them, and everyone pretend to read them all. Sometimes a condemned man hangs near, grim warning to rogues, a signpost fewer ignore. Other times heralds read royal news to gathered crowd, and the gate, which hears everything, becomes the kingdom's mouth. Thus the place becomes symbol of order as well as passage, a hinge on which law swings. Night brings transformation. At sunset, horns sound, the portcullis lowers with heavy finality, chains clanking like a sermon, doors close, locks turn. Latecomers may plead for entry and be refused unless they pay or know someone inside, the eternal power of both coin and cousin. Torches flare on walls, guards pace in measured beat. Beyond, road fades into dark woods where danger waits, and doesn't it fill out the guest book? Inside, the courtyard sleeps easier knowing the gate is shut, a peace built from iron and habit. For those on duty, night is long. They walk parapets, peer through slits, listen for hoofbeats or stealthy splash at moat. Fires are banked, hands warmed, dice cast quietly to fight boredom, a foe as insistent as any army. An owl hoots, river murmurs under bridge. Somewhere a wolf howls and is answered by dogs who have opinions about territorial rights. The watch endures till dawn horn sounds and gates creak open again, and someone says, as always, uneventful, with the relief of men paid to keep it so. The Gatehouse stands as both welcome and warning. It says, "You may enter if you come in peace and pay your due, but cross this lord at peril." The fine print written in stone and iron. It shelters merchants and pilgrims, yet could crush invaders. It is a blend of engineering, ritual, and daily work, the living edge of castle life where policy meets splinters and schedules. So picture it when you think of medieval power. Not only lofty towers, but this threshold of stone and timber, smelling of smoke and horses, echoing with footsteps, alive with watchful eyes. The Gatehouse is where road meets rule, where common traveller and mighty lord briefly share the same narrow passage under arch of stone, a moment of equality carefully supervised by men with keys. Beyond the Gatehouse and the busy outer yard lies the beating heart of any medieval castle or manor, the Great Hall. Step through its heavy doors, and you enter a world at once practical and ceremonial, where the ordinary life of servants mingles with the glitter of feasts and the quiet gravity of justice. An open-plan living space before open-plan living was fashionable, and with better banners. The building itself is impressive by design. Even a modest hall towers higher than the cottages outside the walls. Its roof beams, often oak-darkened by smoke, rise like the ribs of an upturned ship, and creak like one in a storm whenever the wind remembers its lines. Walls are lime-washed or hung with woven tapestries to soften the chill. At one end a vast hearth blazes beneath a hooded chimney, or in older places an open central fire smoulders with smoke venting through louvered roof. The floor may be packed earth in humble manners, but in great castles it is paved with stone or covered with strewn rushes scented with herbs, the medieval answer to carpets, disposable, fragrant, and very opinionated about crumbs. Morning begins quietly. Servants sweep yesterday's rushes and lay fresh, scattering lavender or mint to sweeten the air, and politely outvote last night's stew. Benches are scrubbed, tables set on trestles for whatever meal or meeting the day brings. Dogs doze by hearth while kitchen boys hurry past with trenchers and ale. Sunlight filters through narrow windows, catching dust motes and casting gold on worn banners, a lighting scheme achieved without a single chandelier, imagine. Soon the lord's household stirs. Stewards enter first, checking tallies and planning work. Messengers deliver letters sealed with wax. Clerks unroll parchment to record rents or judgments. Minor nobles or visiting merchants wait along walls, hats in hand, hoping for audience and practicing the ancient art of not fidgeting. Guards warm themselves near fire, their mail softly clinking. The hall feels like crossroads where every strand of the estate's life passes. Traffic control performed with ledgers, not whistles. Meals punctuate the day. The main meal comes at mid-morning or noon. Long tables fill, lord and lady at high table on a raised dais, beneath canopy or painted screen. Family and honoured guests nearby, household knights, chaplains, clerks and servants farther down. Trenchers of coarse bread hold meat or pottage. Ale and wine flow in shared cups. Spices show wealth if used, pepper, the original flex. Minstrels may play softly, hawks perch along wall, and dogs skitter under benches for scraps with professional determination. Conversation hums, business near dais, gossip farther down. The acoustics favour both equally, to everyone's mixed delight. Seating shows rank. To sit near the high table is honour. To eat at its board is privilege. Even the order of serving matters. Dishes pass first to lord, then downward, like gravity with waitstaff. Stewards and butlers orchestrate with quiet mastery, while kitchen staff scurry unseen. On feast days the scene swells with colour, tapestries fresh hung, candles blazing, musician loud, fools capering to laughter. Platters of roasted boar or peacock arrive. Subtlety, sugar sculpture, might grace table if wealth allows, because nothing says piety like an edible fortress. But the hall is it only for eating. It is courtroom and council chamber. After meal or on set days, the lord sits in carved chair or beneath canopy to hear petitions. Villagers come to seek judgment in disputes over land or debt. Merchants request safe passage or license to sell. Minor crimes are tried, theft, trespass, poaching. Witnesses speak, clerks record. Sometimes punishments are mild fines, sometimes harsh. The Lord's word here carries weight of law, a legal system that relies heavily on posture and very public memory. Ceremony thrives in this space. Oaths of fealty are sworn on gospel or sword. Marriages are celebrated before hearth, then feasted at same tables, efficient if a touch smoky. Knights are dubbed with solemn taps on shoulder. Heralds proclaim news of war or peace. Messengers present gifts from distant courts. Even in peaceful times, such rituals remind all who holds power and how many candles it takes to make that point. Daily business can be surprisingly homely. In corner, scribes tally harvest or taxes. Bailiffs confer about sheep and timber. The sheep, for their part, remain unconsulted. A falconer might report on birds' health. A huntsman discuss tomorrow's chase. Artisans bring work for approval, a new saddle, a repaired door. Children of lordly house sometimes play at far end under nurse's eye, while parents speak with retainers. Thus grandeur and domesticity mingle under same soaring beams, like a family room that occasionally sentences people. Season shapes the hall. In winter, fires roar huge and rushes are deep to warm, cold stone. Guests huddle near hearth, while snow drives outside and opinions about weather sharpen to steel. In spring, banners and garlands freshen walls. Talk turns to planting and hunts. Summer brings open doors, cooling breezes, musicians and minstrels in brighter mood, and an entire population pretending heavy wool is quite airy, really. Autumn fills tables with harvest plenty. Accounts of grain and wine dominate clerks' work, and no one is surprised that numbers swell near the dais. Lighting shifts with sun. By day, narrow windows spill pale glow. By night, candles and oil lamps shimmer across polished cups and weapons. Shadows leap on tapestries telling saints' tales or past battles. The original animated feature, fire projected. Firelight warms faces and makes jewels sparkle. It also hides cracks and humble rushes in forgiving dark, a mercy extended to beams and reputations alike. The hall listens to every voice. It hears prayers before meal, laughter of guests, the sharp cry of justice pronounced, the soft sob of widow petitioning mercy. It echoes with footsteps of countless servants and the clink of arms. In siege or crisis it becomes command center. Tables cleared for maps, captains leaning over plans while messengers run. A war room that smells faintly of rosemary and spilled ale, because life refuses to compartmentalize. Despite grandeur, it is lived in. Dogs sleep on rushes, smoke blackens roof beams, spilled ale soaks floor. Children chase each other when no ceremony holds sway. Servants gossip in corners with the speed and accuracy of any modern news network, minus the parchment subscription. The hall breathes like a living creature, shifting from solemn court to noisy feast, to quiet hearth in one day, then doing it again tomorrow, as if that were perfectly reasonable. At night it transforms again. Tables are cleared, benches stacked, fires banked to slow glow, guards pace at edges. Travellers granted shelter sleep along walls wrapped in cloaks. In humbler manners, even lord's household may bed down here when upper chambers are few, a slumber party with halberds. The smell is of smoke, wool, and warm stone. Silence broken by snore, an occasional restless dog, the drip of wax keeping kine like a patient drum. Feast nights linger late. Lutes play, dancers whirl, wine flows till jokes grow bold. Torches flare high, shadows leap, and from dais the lord may toast guests, or listen to tales of heroism. When revel ends, echoes fade slowly. Only embers and a few drowsing servants remain, posted like parentheses around the day. Dawn will come soon, and with it sweeping and fresh rushes for another round, the cycle maintained with broom, lade, ledger, and the occasional trumpet. To understand medieval power, one must know this room. The great hall isn't merely dining space, but stage of rule, justice, hospitality, and memory. Here alliances are forged, disputes ended, stories told that bind lord to people. It is public face of household and private heart at once, a single chamber ambitious enough to be parliament, chapel, courthouse, theatre, and living room, and somehow not drop a plate. So when you picture a castle, see not only battlements, but this long, firelit chamber. Hear clatter of trenchers, rustle of silk beside homespun, whispered prayers, shouted commands. Smell roasting meat, beeswax, smoke. The great hall gathers a whole world under its beams, a place where power wears human face and night ends in warmth, and where tomorrow's history is currently being spilled on the rushes. The narrow lane smells of leather and damp earth, shaded by crooked eaves that lean toward one another like gossiping neighbours. A lantern hangs above a low door marked with a wooden boot, its paint weathered yet clear enough to guide anyone seeking new soles or sturdy shoes. Inside, the cobbler's shop is a quiet refuge from the busy street. The air is warm with the scent of tanned hide, beeswax, and the faint smoke of a small brazier kept glowing to soften glue. Benches line the walls, each scarred by years of careful work. Awls and knives, hammers and tiny nails lie neatly in their places, their handles polished by long use. Strips of leather hang from pegs, some dyed black or brown, others left pale and waiting for the craftsman's hand. Boots in every stage of repair stand ready on shelves, some split at the sole, some needing only a last polish before returning to their owners. The cobbler himself, a man with greying beard and patient eyes, bends over a last wooden form shaped like a foot. He threads waxed linen through a supple upper, stitching it to a stout sole. His fingers are scarred but deft. Each pull is firm, sure, and rhythmic, like a clock's quiet ticking. Now and then he hums under his breath, a tune almost lost beneath the scrape of leather and the brazier's sigh. Beside him, an apprentice sorts tacks into small bowls. The boy's hands aren't yet sure, and now and then a tack escapes and skitters across the floor. He dives to catch it before the master notices. His apron hangs too big, its hem nearly grazing the rushes. When the cobbler calls for thread or glue, the boy hurries to fetch it, eager to please, still learning the shop's unhurried pace. Outside, the lane hums with distant market cries and the clatter of carts over cobbles. Here, moves slower. This craft will not be rushed. Each shoe must be measured, cut, soaked, shaped and sewn with care. A hurried stitch will slacken in the first rain. A careless cut wastes dear leather. The master knows it and teaches it, patiently, by task and by habit. On a shelf near the window rests a row of lasts in many sizes, narrow ones for ladies' slippers, broad ones for farmers' boots, even a tiny one for a baby's first shoes. Each bears the marks of years, scratches, stains, initials carved into the wood. Some belong to customers long buried. The cobbler keeps them out of respect and because a grandchild may someday want the same fit as a grandfather. The day's first customer arrives, a miller, hands floured white, carrying boots so caked with mud they seem more earth than leather. He asks for new soles. Road to the mill has chewed the old ones thin. The cobbler turns each boot slow, tracing the seams, testing the heels, weighing the work in silence before naming a price. The miller nods and leaves lighter-footed than he came. Next comes a merchant's wife with a linen-wrapped bundle. She reveals delicate shoes with frayed ribbons and scuffed toes, shy survivors of many dances. Can they be made fine again? A feast approaches. The cobbler smiles, yes, well enough to shine, and the woman lingers a heartbeat to breathe the workshop's calm before she slips back into the street. The apprentice eyes the slippers with interest. They're lighter than the boots he knows, their soles thin and pliant. The master uses the moment how to handle tender hides, how to stitch without puckering, when to choose soft wax and when hard. The boy nods, trying each motion, fingers clumsy but intent. Midday brings a pause. The cobbler eats bread and cheese, washing it with watered ale. The apprentice chews beside him, swinging his legs, a smear of glue on his cheek. They speak little, sharing the easy quiet while bells and laughter drift in from the lane. Then work resumes, steady as before. In the afternoon a young knight squire arrives, bearing his master's riding boots, fine, but rubbed thin at the stirrup, spattered with road mud. His bow is awkward, his request urgent. The cobbler studies the leather and promises dawn. Relief loosens the boy's shoulders. He bows again and backs into the rain. The master selects a supple, stout hide, cutting with long, economical strokes that waste nothing. Scraps are set aside for patches and straps. Even slivers find uses. Fresh-cut leather scents the room, warm and rich, braided with the brazier's smoke. Rain begins to patter on the eaves. The workshop grows cozier, lantern light turning the benches to gold. The cobbler glances once at the window, raindrops racing down the pane, then returns to his stitches. Rain is good for trade, he thinks. Wet roads thin soles and keep his brazier fed. An older man comes leaning on a stick, holding shoes that have walked a lifetime. He and the cobbler greet each other like kin. The shoes, cracked and faded, fit him as no others do. Could they be mended once more? The cobbler's answer is gentle. Some shoes carry more than feet. They carry days one doesn't wish to set down. The apprentice cuts new insoles while the master guides his hands. The old leather is fragile. The boy's fingers tremble. A touch to the shoulder, a quiet reminder, care over speed. Together they lift the shoes to quiet dignity, cracks eased, soles fur. The old man leaves smiling, step surer than when he entered. Toward dusk the cobbler rubs wax into a finished pair of boots until they glow softly. His hands move in small circles, his gaze is far away, perhaps on the roads these boots will travel. The apprentice sweeps, gathering curls of leather and stray tacks. The broom's whisper mingles with the evening bells. When the day's work ends, the master wipes each blade and awl before returning it to its place. The brazier is banked. The shop falls into orderly hush, the scent of leather lingering like a promise for tomorrow. Outside, lanterns kind along the lane. The cobbler locks the door and slips the day's coins into a small chest. The apprentice yawns, proud and tired. Together they step into the cool, damp air, shoulders easy, pace unhurried. The shop sleeps now beneath its painted sign. Tomorrow it will wake to awls and hammers, to the rasp of leather on wood, to murmured lessons between master and boy. Here patience and skill outlast coin, and every pair of shoes carries the quiet heartbeat of a craft well loved.